because a judge orders illicit cannabis signs removed as New York regulations face scrutiny, you guys. That's right. A state Supreme Court justice issued a temporary restraining order last week allowing the operators of 2 Manhattan hemp stores to remove illicit cannabis signs that had been placed on the storefronts by the marijuana regulators following raids. That's right. The judge ruling came as attorneys for dozens of hemp store owners whose shops have been raided and have had products seized and are fighting back in court. The cases include challenging the constitutionality of state regulators posting illicit cannabis seized signs on the fronts of shops whose owners have not had their cases adjudicated and argue they did nothing wrong. The regulators include hefty fines for any shop owners who remove the signs without authorization. And Joshua Esch Brotner, a Manhattan attorney who represents numerous hemp store owners across New York, said the temporary restraining order is an indication that judges are beginning to question the legality of the enforcement tactics being used by state regulators and the New York City Sheriff's Office. In a quote, you guys, as our challenges are now subject to judicial review, having exhausted administrative remedies, the courts are confirming what we have been arguing in Albany, that all of this is unconstitutional and needs to stop, Bochner said. Bochner noted that the state Supreme Court Justice Arthur F. Engron, who signed the temporary restraining order, had raised concerns during an earlier hearing about the regulatory process and seizures being carried out by the state cannabis regulators, often in coordination with New York City Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement agencies. The petition filed by Bochner on behalf of operators of 2 CBD kratom stores sought, in quotes, the removal of incendiary signs proclaiming the owner engaged in criminal activity without any hearing or due process. The court case is one of numerous legal challenges that the hemp store owners are pursuing in response to ongoing raids of their shops, in which they claim regulators and police are improperly treating them like unlicensed marijuana stores. The litigation notes that regulators placed the illicit cannabis seized signs on the front of the stores prior to any hearing, and they often remain there for months. Bochner's petition noted that the CBD kratom stores have retail hemp licenses but are being caught up in the state's disorganized dragnet against retailers illegally selling marijuana, an entirely different product subject to an entirely different set of regulations which are unlawfully and unconstitutionally being thrust down petitioners' throat with reckless impunity. In a separate case involving a hemp store in Queens, another state Supreme Court justice recently issued a ruling finding that the New York City Sheriff's Office had overstepped its authority in September when it ordered the shop to shut down for a year after investigators raided the shop and seized what they alleged was illicit cannabis products for sale. And the sheriff's investigators had conducted their inspection of the store without a search warrant, and when it was closed, they turned off the store security cameras. They entered to prevent their actions from being recorded, and an administrative law judge issued a ruling following a hearing that found the shops should not have been raided during its off hours and should have been allowed to reopen. But under New York's cannabis regulations, the sheriff has the ability to ignore the administrative judge's decision and can order shops to remain closed for up to a year. In a quote, the sheriff is permitted to entirely disregard the hearing officer's recommendation, which is issued after an evidentiary hearing, rendering the hearing unless or even a potential farce, wrote State Supreme Court Justice Kevin J. Kerrigan, and in quote says, indeed, the final arbiter has the authority to confer no weight to the hearing. There is no real meaningful opportunity to be heard, which vastly increases the risk of erroneous deprivation and raises a due process concern. On Friday, in response to Kerrigan's ruling, the sheriff's department lifted the sealing order that had closed the hemp store on Francis Lewis Boulevard in Queens, according to Bochner. And the recent rulings in favor of hemp store owners come as a broader lawsuit challenging the legality of New York's ongoing regulatory raids of licensed hemp stores is pending in the Supreme Court of Albany against the State Office of Cannabis Management, the Cannabis Control Board, and New York City Sheriff's Attorney Anthony Miranda. The case pending before State Supreme Court Justice Thomas Marcelli accuses the agencies of tampering trampling on hemp retailers' constitutional rights, you guys. The case was filed on behalf of 3 licensed hemp stores, Smoke and Save on West Avenue in Saratoga Springs, 2 strains on Aviation Road in Queensbury and Breckenridge, and on West 31st Street in Manhattan. The New York County Sheriff's Office, which is named as the defendant, has led the regulatory inspections in New York City that store owners and their attorneys have described as military-style raids, you guys. And hundreds of licensed hemp stores across New York have been raided over the past several months by state regulators and police agencies that have seized millions of dollars in cannabinoid products, goods that the retailers had been selling without penalty over the past 6 years, as state and federal laws had expanded the legalization of hemp, you guys. The seizures follow new regulations governing hemp and cannabis that were authorized by the State Cannabis Control Board in December, and without public comment or involvement of the state legislature. The crackdown is part of a broader effort by Governor Kathy Hochul's administration to shut down stores selling cannabis without a license, as New York's retail marijuana market has stumbled. And this story goes on and on and on. You can read the full article over on our website at www.highat9news.com. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
There's a process. There's a process. And this is ridiculous. And what New York has done is absolutely violated these people's rights. And I'm glad somebody's making up equal protection under the Constitution argument about it, because it is constitutional law. And whether they're breaking the law or not, there is a process, and you don't get to circumvent that to attack these people's stores.
Fair enough. Greg, you're pretty active in the New York market. What do you have any thoughts on this, Greg?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah.
My first thought is, Jason, I'm responsible for bringing capital to the New York licensed market. I'm an investor, and I represent many other investors, and we've invested a good amount of money, multi-millions of dollars in New York businesses. So, first and foremost, I'm all for regulation and legal sales of cannabis in New York. And one of the things that shakes investor confidence in the New York market is the very significant illegal illicit market. But on the flip side of that, I am also all for due process and not violating constitutional rights. And I don't get into that side of things. I let judges and lawyers and courts
let them figure it out on their own.
Sort that part out. But at the end of the day, in order to have a thriving market, these markets need money, and people need confidence in the market that they're investing in, and that the laws that are in place are enforced. And this capital is what enables markets like a new market, fairly new, a couple of years old now, to thrive.
Interesting.
So that's my take.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. New York, they got lots of raids going on, you guys. Man, oh man.
Sounds like you're whispering, Jason.
Really?
And it's not the number of raids, it's the process that we're talking about here, right? We know that New York has pressure to show that they're doing something about the unregulated market. Those of us in regulated cannabis know the best way to support regulated cannabis is to have a fully functional regulated model that disincentivizes illicit activity, and New York hasn't sort of gotten that memo yet. And New York has a history of not adhering to due process. I mean, we can go back 20 years. We talked about stop and frisk and Giuliani on this show a week ago. And so we've seen a steady drumbeat of enforcement activities out of this state that seem to be more designed for the optics than for due process and for making sure that they're taking care of all stakeholders. The notion that they could put the sign illicit cannabis on the front of somebody's store before there's due process or any sort of rulings is really regressive policy. It's trying to stigmatize businesses without having any of the like a threshold or a burden of proof. And it's, to me, it reeks of desperation. It reeks of regulators that don't know what they're doing, haven't figured out how to support the regulated market, and are really flailing. And to Jesse's point, you have to have a functional market in order to onboard capital. And if you can't onboard capital, you're not going to have a functional market. And so I hope New York understands that they represent this massive opportunity in the tri-state area. I would say in the last 3 years, they've gotten more wrong than right.
I agree with you, Yarrow. It's like somebody read the Scarlet Letter and they're like, I know how to fix this.
You have anything you want to say on that, Greg?
In regards to what?
What they just said.
Well, if you gave me some headphones.
Oh, sorry, bro. Sorry, Greg. Sorry, Greg. You know what I'm saying? Here, you can have my headphones, Greg.
Look, listen, I could vaguely hear some of the comments, but I will say that the gentleman's right. There is a massive opportunity in the regulated New York market in the tri-state area. We anticipate in the next couple of years there will be well over 1,000 stores in the state of New York. Right now, there's about 250. Last year at this time, 1 year ago today, or roughly around the holiday period a year ago, there was like 18 stores. And then there was a long injunction as there were some lawsuits, and judge shut down the legal market from opening additional stores. And now we're really on a fast pace, and money and new money is going to be required to help this legal industry continue to grow. And so, we are hoping that the laws that are in place, that were put in place by the regulators, are enforced, that the illicit market, where there's truly illegal sales and illegal cannabis stores, are dealt with, so money can continue to come into this market confidently. I mean, the illicit market is one of the things that has continued to undermine California. After all of these years, and that's something that has to be dealt with. But again, hemp stores, if in fact that's actually true, getting shut down for or having signs placed in their windows for illicit cannabis is not proper due process, and proper due process is something that everybody's entitled to.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You guys, not mad. I love me some due process. Rod, you have any thoughts on this from Canada as far as what a mess New York is?
Yeah, I can't comment specifically to New York, but it reminds me a lot of the Toronto market. So just north of that, right? It was a similar thing. They were slow rollout with regards to the amount of stores. They just upped it from 75 stores for retail stores to 150. And there was a lot of illicit shops in the early days. And, even to this day, like it's been over 6 years now. We've been legal at the federal level, and we still can't do traditional advertising. Like we can't do like 100 milligram packs of edibles. So you're almost encouraging, you're basically making the illicit market thrive. So they're able to sell products that the legal market cannot. And in my opinion, it's I feel some type of way about it for sure. Like I don't know what would be the motive to do that. Why they think it's better for people to rely on the illicit market for these types of products. But at the end of the day, it's a slow process. Hopefully it'll change soon. But we've been seeing it here, even in a 6-year legal market. There's still a whole lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. Like the beverages, you can only buy like 4 or 5 of them at a time, but I can go buy, an ounce or, multiple vapes. It didn't make any sense. So for me, I think it's, people regulating, like you said, and they just don't really know what they're doing. And they got to, reach out, I think, more to, in industry and get, there's petitions and stuff like that going around to up the edible limit, but it's been 6 years. They've been talking about it for a couple of years. They finally increased the amount of beverages that you could buy. So now you can go buy like a 6-pack or a 12-pack, 24-pack eventually, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we need to get there. But I would say, what's the reason? The main reason, I think, it's to slow the industry down. They don't want these companies getting too big too quickly, in my opinion. They got to protect the incumbents, the big alcohol, the tobaccos of the world, the pharmas of the world. So I think there's a method to the madness. Like I can't imagine these regulators are that dumb. There's got to be some ulterior motive, and that's me speculating. But end of the day, we're still early. We're still in the first inning, so give them a little bit of slack.
Still the first inning, you guys. Man.
All right.
Man, if cannabis was baseball, man, oh man, I'd call it more like the 7th inning stretch, because there's so much stretching going on with all these regulators.
Wow, pause.
Stretching these laws to overregulate and overtaxation.
Stretching the story out.
Industry and space and whatnot. But nonetheless, Yarrow, you have any thoughts on this?
Nothing further from me at this time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Did